E boa tarde, boa gente. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not going to even try to do this in Portuguese, although it is great to be back in Brazil. I am not always crazy about presenting after lunch. You guys, as I recall, have some of the best coffee in the world, so hopefully you partook in a little bit during the break, because we actually have some exciting news to share regarding Teachers Know Best. So, as Dennis said, my name is Henry Hips, and I'm on a team at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that focuses on fostering the growth of education marketplaces that support the development of tools, products, and services that improve teaching and enhance learning. And so in a lot of our work over the last several years, we've been listening to teachers in schools to get a better understanding of what's happening, where the challenges are. And without question, teachers are incorporating technology, and they're very much focused on understanding ways to differentiate instruction and to personalize their work on behalf of their students. And unfortunately, their needs are still not being effectively met. And as many of you know that are involved in serving the marketplace is confusing. There are a lot of actors in it, right? You've got teachers, you've got students, you've got parents, you've got school administrators, you have school district administrators, you have provincial government, you have federal government. And so this creates a lot of confusion in addition to the existing publishing community that may or may not be meeting the needs of students and teachers. And so our strong hypothesis is that one of the things that's core, that's critical to making this marketplace work more effectively is amplifying teacher voice, right? And amplifying teacher voice in a way that makes its way into the marketplace so that those developers that are building the types of tools and content and products for tomorrow clearly hear that voice. Okay, so my team at the Gates Foundation has spent quite a bit of time thinking about what this education marketplace could look like. And you see here some of the characteristics that we believe a very healthy marketplace would show. Well, we're going to focus today on the first one, right? And that's making the needs of teachers really well known to product developers so that products, content, and tools actually get better. So how do we do that? Well, let's actually go speak to teachers in a really constructive and deep way to better understand what their needs are, and then boil that data and information down in a way that will be powerful for the marketplace. So we launched a teacher-driven market study called Teachers Know Best. The first study was launched about a year ago, and since then we've produced 2 more. At any point, you can go to the website www.teachersknowbest.org to get more information than we'll have time to get into today. But all the raw data is also available for you to dig into. And so these 3 studies really focused on 3 issues. The first one went straight after this question of what educators want from digital instructional tools. The second one looked into the professional development marketplace and tried to get a better understanding of teachers' thoughts on the marketplace for services and tools that are in place to help them improve practice. And the third is about making data work for teachers and students. So these are the 3 focuses, and I'll breeze through each of these. So before I dig into the specifics, it's important to know a little bit about the methodology. So it was a combined approach where we took both a qualitative research approach as well as a quantitative research approach. So on the qualitative side, we did a lot of interviews, and the partners that we worked with to do the work did a lot of interviews as well as actual observations in classrooms to uncover what the needs were and translate them into the research. And it's critical also to know that both technology-forward schools as well as traditional schools were intentionally included so that you had a broad gamut of what was happening in the marketplace. The second was the quantitative piece, where literally thousands of teachers were surveyed, and in some cases, thousands of students were also surveyed, nationally represented sample of such in order to provide a deeper understanding of what their beliefs were about the system. And so for the first one, what do they want from school? In this particular part, we engaged over 3,000 teachers, as well as over 2,000 students. And one of the broad takeaways was that, on the whole, teachers believe in the power and potential of digital instructional practice and content. They believe technology can be a strong enabler. But what they clearly pointed to was that their needs were not being met, either by what was available in the marketplace or by what those in their systems that had purchasing decisions were actually buying on their behalf. So on the whole, just 54% of teachers surveyed, 54% thought that the tools that most of their students were using were actually effective, right? That's a very low percentage. That either means that the stuff that they believe are needed is not showing up in the marketplace, or folks that are in position to buy are not buying the right stuff for them. Now, digging a little bit deeper into specific content areas, it actually did become clear that they felt that stuff that they needed just wasn't in the marketplace. And in particular, there were two areas that were highlighted. One was around high school math. The other was around literacy for early grades, for primary instruction. And on the whole, just 43% of teachers said that these resources that are available to help them teach the existing set of standards are available and sufficient in digital format, right? So there's still an issue in those cases where they said, we have stuff available, it's still in textbook format that makes it difficult for them to incorporate in newer instructional models that are digitally driven. So how has this affected our work? One, we immediately went out and looked to validate this question of what's available and how effective it is. So kicked off a study to actually survey over 300 literacy products, and they in fact were right. Only 3 came back as being valid and aligned with the Common Core State Standards. And in the United States, the Common Core State Standards, as many of you have heard, is a really important movement implemented by the majority of the states to set a higher and clearer set of standards, expectations for what students should know. And with that, we dug a little bit deeper onto the literacy side and launched a literacy courseware challenge, whereby we put out a pot of $5 million to spur the development of tools for those early grades on literacy, and were able to support 29 early stage organizations that were doing some really innovative things and have since attracted a significant amount of investment to scale their work. The other thing that we did was launch what we call testbed networks. And really what those testbed networks are regional education technology collaboratives that tie together those folks in those regions that are building really innovative tools and those teachers that are looking to incorporate that, and coming up with rubrics and measurements to actually define what works and what doesn't work and provide input to developers to improve the product development. So professional development. Professional development is a really significant challenge. And if some of you were in my friend Jason Lang's presentation earlier from Bloomboard, you heard him talk about the challenges in the professional development marketplace in the United States. And I would venture to say that there's similar challenges here in Brazil and other regions. So on the whole, teachers are very wholly dissatisfied with the choices that they have for both professional development services as well as products. We're not going to emphasize this today, but suffice it to say that particularly when it comes to innovation and technology-driven instruction, the results were that much worse as far as teachers' opinions as to the quality of help they were receiving. So the third one, this question of the use of data. This is a really critical one that's getting even more attention, and rightfully so, with these new innovative models, which really call for much more data, more relevant data, and data that's available more frequently with shorter cycles in order for teachers to constantly course correct and help guide their students and meet their student needs. So this was an area that we wanted to dig into even further, and that's why this is the focus of the third study. So we wanted to address 4 big questions. What do teachers believe about data-driven instruction and the tools that support it? How do teachers use data to tailor their instruction? What are the key challenges with the tools that are designed to support that type of instruction? And what do teachers need to make data work to inform instruction in the classroom? In this particular study, we went after 4,600 public school teachers to get underneath this question. And the takeaways were actually pretty deep. On the whole, one of the key things they said was the data is too slow, right? By the time we get it, it's no longer relevant. The student has moved on, we've moved on, and we're constantly looking in the rearview mirror, evaluating data that is no longer relevant. The second critical piece that they highlighted was that many times it's not accurate, right? And this goes back to the question of having very fragmented education systems where you have all these layers, where you have school stuff going on and school district stuff going on, and state or provincial stuff going on, and federal stuff going on. And all of those different layers have different data. And so when those different data sources don't line up, a lot of times there are inaccuracies, and they're very frustrated by that. The third piece also goes to the question of fragmentation, not just at the levels of governance within education, but even more importantly in the tools themselves, right? How many folks do we have here that are instructors have been in the classroom? By show of hands. Okay, so some of you express the frustration that we captured on video and other ways with these teachers, which is even if they like the tools they get, even if the data that's coming from their school and school district is accurate and it's coming in a timely fashion, it's coming from so many different places that they spend hours at night trying to piece together coherent perspectives of what's happening with each of their students. Because it all comes from different sources, those tools are not integrated, and even when they are integrated, it's difficult for them to easily analyze the data. So one key thing here that we focused on was to not look at teachers as a monolith, right? Actually, to think about this as a marketplace and recognize that there are different teacher types. And so as any other marketplace where you'd expect an adoption curve of any innovation or product, there are some teachers that by design are more innovative, right? The left side of the curve here, and some that are going to be, let's say, a little harder to move in terms of change of practice, right? And any new innovation is going to follow this type of curve. And so it was important to dig into the questions to make sure that when teachers were answering these questions, we understood what types of teachers they were, so that you had some kind of theory about how this innovation would be adopted. And it's also important to know, in taking a market perspective, that teachers themselves aren't just islands with their students kind of teaching in a vacuum. They're part of this broader system, right? And so you want to look at the broader system in terms of a market lens as well, where school context matters. And you can see here, if you kind of analyze the types of schools these teachers came from, there are some significant differences, right? So you see some alignment here. If you recall from the last slide here, these different types of teachers, where the 3 on the left are the more forward-thinking and data using and technology using, and the right are less so. You can see them here lined up, where in the schools that have invested significantly in technology, where they have more broadband, where they have more tools, you actually have a significantly higher proportion of teachers that are at that left side of the adoption curve, right? So there's some alignment around school context in terms of looking at schools as a marketplace, in alignment with the individual instructors. And so even with all this movement, the innovators are not standing still. They're moving forward, and some of these schools listed here are doing amazing work where they've rushed in the market gap to build their own tools, or are they working with their providers to actually build tools on their behalf? And these tools are beginning to make it to the broader marketplace. And one of the key takeaways here, and I suggest and recommend that you go to the website for deeper analysis here, this cycle is where a lot of teachers pointed to a need for features in the tools that they needed in technology and data-driven instruction, where they want to be able to assess what's happening with a given student, do some analysis, and readily pivot their instruction for that given student. And finally, a recognition that even teachers, as powerful as they are, there are these broader systems that they operate within in context. And if we want to actually think about this as a marketplace, and we want to move the marketplace, those that are in decision-making positions also have to adapt. And in that case, this is kind of a view of smarter demand, where those decision makers are better informed about what their needs are and how they show up to the marketplace. They're better informed about how to actively and effectively procure the best thing at the best price for the best terms for their students and teachers. They're better informed at how to implement effectively and evaluate what works, and then feed that information back into the marketplace so there's transparency about what works and what doesn't, so that you end up getting better product in the end. All right, so overall, this is kind of a view of teachers know best and how it informs our broader work about markets. Again, the website is www.teachersknowbest.org. And again, thank you for the invitation. This has been great.
Thank you.